Welcome to the Contributor Corner for Rideout Radio. My name is Trina, and our guest this morning is Jennifer Rideout, Jennifer the archaeologist. What do you have for us today?
Hi, Trina. Great to be back. I'm a professional archaeologist, been working in the cultural resource management field for over a decade. And today I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what someone in my profession does and how we can be useful to both businesses and private individuals. So whenever a new project is planned, and that could be new construction, a renovation project, expanding a facility, anything like that, if it's occurring on public property, if it requires any form of federal permit, or if federal funds will be used in any part of the project, the builders and the project managers, they can't knowingly or play dumb about not knowing about a natural or cultural resource. So really, you just cannot use public funds to damage natural or cultural resources. So because of that, whenever one of these projects is happening, in environmental and cultural consulting companies, like ones that I have worked for, are brought in, and they perform biological, environmental, and cultural consulting surveys. So these must be conducted ahead of the project to identify any resources that might be affected by the project and help the planners to plan around them or come up with just a good middle ground that damages the site as little as possible or completely avoids it, ideally. That's what I would be involved in, the cultural surveys. If we're brought in really early in the planning project, we conduct what we call a desktop review or a critical issues analysis. And really, we just review all the records that are on file. So we find out if there's been a previous systematic survey, if there are any known resources that have already been recorded in the area, sites, historic buildings, things like that. And we can identify sensitive areas that are very likely to have sites that most people, if possible, would want to plan to go around. So we can usually, if we're brought in early enough, we can help individuals and companies avoid most of the really expensive and time-consuming hurdles that they might run into. If, let's say, hypothetically, they're planning a survey project, they don't know there's a cemetery in the path of their project, and they run into it mid-project, the project stops. However, if they brought us in, we could most often we could probably predict that there would be a site there, and they could have just planned to go around it. So we can save companies a lot of money if we're brought in early enough. But when we're brought in to do a survey, we're looking for things like pre-contact or prehistoric villages, campsites, or other special areas, historic sites, like old homesteads where pioneers might have set up camp to live, could be old cemeteries that are sometimes on the map, sometimes known about, and sometimes they're not. And also we often look at historic architecture, so old, really cool buildings that need to be preserved because they're special in some way, shape, or form. But even if it's not a large project, if it's more of an individual working on a smaller project, it's still good to get some cultural people involved in some way, shape, or form, because we can at least conduct a desktop review for you, and we can identify areas, like I'd mentioned before. Even if you just brought a new farm and you want to build a house and a barn, and you've got all the plans laid, and then you break ground to make your foundation and you find out there's a historic cemetery on the hilltop where you wanted to build your house. Even for a private individual, that will throw in a lot of monkey wrenches. So yeah, that's just kind of what we do. We will nerd out on you. So if you want to know, if you want to know some just historic information about your property, we can do title searches. We can do the genealogy of people who have lived in a historic house that you might be building. If you do have a cemetery on your property, we can come in and kind of identify unmarked graves so you can actually know like the actual boundaries of the cemetery if you wanted to like tend it or put a fence around it, which is a project that I did recently for someone in the area. They bought a property adjacent to a historic cemetery and they wanted to know how to take care of it and the exact boundaries of it. So they brought us in to do a little cultural survey. We identified half a dozen unmarked graves. So we gave them an actual boundary for the cemetery and then gave them tips of how they could ethically maintain the cemetery.
Good stuff to know. Thank you for sharing. Listen to Jennifer and our other contributors every weekday at runradio.net.